What on God's green earth is going on, everyone, and welcome to this latest grass-fed film review here on the Root of All Angel podcast, the place for entertainment news, grass-fed reviews, and more. This review will contain spoilers. When a colonial town is gripped by an evil force, it leads to a witch hunt that has grim consequences for centuries to come. Now Dina will experience Sarah Fear's story and learn the origins of this wicked curse and try to put an end to it once and for all. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fear Street grass-fed review series here on the Root of All Angel podcast, and this is Fear Street 1666. Fear Street 1666 was once again directed by Lee Janiak, and this story takes us back in time through a vision Dina is experiencing. Through the vision, we see Dina through the perspective of Sarah Fear. Originally, I thought I was going to have issues with the actors in the last two films playing the roles of people in 1666. However, seeing old faces like Kate and Simon in the same scenes as Cindy and a young Ziggy Berman did leave a smile on my face. This film takes inspiration from films like The Witch, Hereditary, and other films that have a more occult feel to them, and that's something that really worked for it. That's also something I really enjoyed about the entire series. Every movie feels connected, but distinctly different, and that choice made each installment feel fresh. This film does take time to be more authentic to the time period, so don't expect any 90s bangers when we're here in 1666. Also, the lighting and the overall cinematography looked dreadful, dark, and everything that you'd expect from a horror tale inspired by Salem. Although the old English accents were kind of goofy at times and weren't delivered all too well, the actors looked like they were having a fun time. And Dina playing Sarah and Sam playing Hannah Miller had plot parallels to both characters in the present day, which was a nice choice. A character performance that really stood out to me this time around was Tommy, who played Mad Thomas, the creepy dude calling everyone who was having fun a sinner. McCabe Sly not only had the best old English accent, but played this character very differently than the Tommy we see in 1978, which showed that he had some range there. The horror in this film is much more subtle than past films, meaning we don't really see anything happen, but we do see the horrific aftermath of things. Much like horror films that are psychological or more occult based, this film had a much more dreadful feel to it, and it was less fun as a result, and I really don't mean that as a negative. But seeing the aftermath of what Pastor Cyrus did to the town's children was much more horrifying than seeing Tommy behead campers, at least for me anyway. As mentioned in my review of 1978, I wanted this film to have more fun with subverting character expectations, and not only was that prayer answered, but the story as a whole went places I did not expect. I think Fear and Hannah Miller's story was handled well, especially showing their love for each other and the homophobia masked by religious, good old righteous Christian values. Blaming their love on the occult would be a common practice among religious zealots in Salem, or in this case, Old Shadyside, and I like that attention to real life occurrences. From here, I assumed that Sarah Fear would find the village's quote-unquote witch we meet earlier in the film and learn her teachings, so that she may gain revenge on the town. This motivation would have been understandable and a valid reason, but it would have been predictable. Enter Solomon Good. Solomon is the first in the Good bloodline and is the ancestor to our trusty sheriff, Nick Good. Solomon, much like Nick, is dependable, trustworthy, dives headfirst into danger, or at least we thought. Solomon being the origin of the curse was really unexpected and done in a way that didn't feel cheap. He had valid reasons and it just came off really natural. This series did a fantastic job of building up Sarah Fear as the big bad, and I mean, her name is literally Sarah Fear. It sounds like the personification of evil. You almost feel as shocked and even a bit guilty as Dina and the others when they find out Fear was not to blame for this curse. For over 300 years, her name was slandered and used in vain for many deaths, and having the Good family being the root of all evil was just a great storytelling choice. I have to ask, did anyone else get really hyped when the movie changes back to Fear Street 1994 with the title card and everything? That shit was so sick and even got me more excited to the conclusion to this epic tale. Well, I guess Nick Good really backs the blue, huh? Damn it, Nick, I thought you were one of the good ones. One bad apple, I guess, right? Again, I really didn't expect the Goods to be evil, especially our sheriff. Everything leading up to the final fight at the mall was pretty strong, and I felt like we were going to see something really epic. I also appreciated how it felt like we were right back in the first film. However, the ending action sequence of this film was the weakest part for me. The plan wasn't very clear and it felt really cluttered and goofy, but seeing Ziggy Berman and Nick Good reunite under these new circumstances was really cool to see. I also like how Ziggy didn't feel any hesitation when helping to take down Good. Sweet, sweet revenge. Going back to 94 to end the curse was neat and all, but after two back-to-back solid films that had more serious stories with 1978 and earlier in this film with 1666, going back to 94 kind of felt like a step back in tension. I mentioned back in my review of 1994 that it felt like a more mature Goosebumps story and that 90s cheese factor really worked for it. But after getting a Jason-style slasher flick and then this Salem occult horror film, these two films overshadow the first film in tone and presentation immensely. 1994 was not bad and I really enjoyed my time with it, but the much darker tone of these other two films really appealed to me more. After a subpar action set piece and chase scene, we finally see Dina, through the spirit of fear, slay Nick Good, ending this town's wicked curse and clearing the name of Shadyside and Sarah Fear herself. We see Dina, Josh, and Sam living a normal life now, happily ever after. That is, of course, until we see Hans grab the evil book that started this all. And that is the end of our wicked tale. Or is it? Fear Street 1666 was a really mixed bag for me. While I really enjoyed most of my time with it, the ending felt sort of hollow and rushed. I also think that something was really missing. I think a lot of that had to do with the other two stories being so much stronger and more entertaining and more just focused in general than the present day storyline. And now, this brings me to my power rankings of the Fear Street Trilogy. Coming in at number 3 is Fear Street 1994. 94 was a great introduction to the series. The 90s Goosebumps aesthetic and that opening that highlighted both how fun and brutal this trilogy was going to be was a great opening match of sorts. It set the tone and offered mystery to the viewer. However, as stated before, when compared to the other two films, this one was the most hokey and it had the burden of laying down a lot of groundwork, which it did well, but at times it lacked a focus and felt too much like a TV movie. At number 2, we have Fear Street 1666. As stated in the review earlier, 1666 used trickery and deception, much like the town's villain, Solomon Good. I really enjoyed the parallels between Dina and Sarah Fear, and the horror being more psychological and occult was a strong suit. And while the cast looked like they had fun with their fun, goofy old English accents, it did take me out of it at times. And although going back to 1994 was necessary for the overall plot, the ending did feel a bit rushed and it felt like we took a step back into being more campy, which I thought was kind of a loss. And coming in at number 1, of course, is Fear Street 1978. It also felt like it was the most fun and had a more diverse cast of characters. What I think put this one at the top spot for me was the location being in one place and how it felt more focused. It also took me back to watching dumb summer slasher flicks and I really enjoyed that. Finding out Tommy was the axe killer was a nice touch, and Sadie Sick's performance as Ziggy Berman was probably the MVP performance of the trilogy for me. Berman's story also felt the most personal as a whole, and 78 in particular is the one that feels like a standalone film. That's how strong and focused it is. Overall, you really can't go wrong with any of these as they all fit into one story, and I'm glad Netflix made this into a trilogy of films rather than a TV show, which this very well could have been. But I feel like the story would have been drawn out, and that's kind of a criticism I have with a lot of their shows. Kind of like Stranger Things. Based on the tease at the end, I think it's safe to say to expect more Fear Street coming in the future, or at least I hope. I think they can go a bunch of different directions, like making another film or trilogy, a TV show or miniseries, but personally, I'd like to see them go a more animated route. The show Love, Death, and Robots offers animated mini episodes and one-off stories with different art styles and tone. I think this format is tailor-made for Fear Street, especially with all the individual stories in the R.L. Stine catalog, and the creative freedom I'd hope writers at Netflix have and would utilize. But that's just me. What did you all think of the Fear Street trilogy, and how would you rank them? Let me know at RootofAllAngel on Twitter and Instagram, and drop me a follow to keep up with the latest content. As always, take care, thank you for listening, and a special thank you to those who stayed with me here on Fear Street.